Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of One Step at a Time with Charlie Chen. And, before I forget, happy belated Christmas and an early Happy New Year. Now, while it would be easy to talk about things that happened to me this year or complain about some things that's outside of my control, I think now, it's still important to do it because you need to find out what's happening in the world so you can orient yourself properly. But that's all besides the point. I think we should do stuff that we can actually, change, right? And for me, and I'm going to switch my window to my screen here, is that I've been doing comedy for 2 years now, I think. And while I sort of got one-liners down, as in I can tell a one-liner and write them, the biggest problem with one-liners is that for a set like, I don't know, I did 8 minutes just this past Friday, and that I had to prepare 30 jokes for it, and I only went through I don't know, I went through like a good 20 of them, maybe a little bit more. But that's the thing, it's like, that's a lot of memorization, right? And sometimes it doesn't always click and they don't. So here are a few, I guess I'll just start writing them down, okay? So when it comes to one-liners, okay, one-liners, the basic structure is set up into punch, right? And then if you're feeling frisky, you can tag, which is a follow-up punch, and you can tag some more and tag some more. Now, now if you're really good at it, you can make your setup and punch in the tag, or however many tags that you decide to do, and I don't know, and you can even do a setup 2 into punch into tag to the nth place, and if you're feeling frisky, you can do a callback, right? So now it doesn't have to be like that, but that's pretty standard and pretty basic. And I guess if you're really good, because I've been trying to find the thing I've been trying to find out is this, right? First of all, with one-liners, I have to remember a lot of things, right? Too many one-liners to remember, right? And then on top of that, so this would be, I guess, problems with only doing one-liners, right? It will help if I know how to spell. Too many one-liners to remember, which gets difficult with longer sets. And then the other thing is that it is hard to follow a theme because they are all over the place. And one of the other problems with one-liners is modern audiences may think one-liners are old school. Now, there's nothing wrong with it because a good one-liner is still a great joke, right? Now, another thing I was thinking about, because I study comedy, is, let's see, so you have setup, punch, right? But you also have premise into setup into punch. So that's another possible setup, and of course you can tag afterwards as many as you want to. So in my effort to go beyond a one-liner, I guess, so there are two schools of thoughts, right? One way to do that is you do your setup into, well, we'll just borrow from here. So methods of extending one-liners to modern audiences. So one would be that, right? Wow. Technology. Okay. So it's tag until it is long. So you have these kind of situations where you can do that, but then you just mix and match that until it's a set, right? Another possibility is do a story, then insert jokes every frequent enough to make it into a do a story, then insert jokes frequent enough to make it into a comedy set, right? So that's another one. But that's the thing, right? Just saying that's how you do it doesn't actually tell me how to do it. Now, it took me 6 months to understand what a joke is, and that's just to reach the point where one-liners are, right? And so in a way, yes, I have been quiet lately. It's not that I don't want to do comedy, it's that there are some things that I need to figure out before I feel like I have something to show to go on stage, right? And because then I would just be saying the same one-liners and get tired out and stressed out, but not actually making progress. It's something like I do believe in repetition and practice, but I need to make sure I'm repeating and practicing things that are actually good, that's actually correct, or things that are actually helping me move forward, right? And that's actually why I have been listening to people's sets and I've been typing them out so that I can better understand what has happened and what makes a set good. Now, we have 12 pages of it. Now, I don't think we might not get to the, because this one is from a Chinese comedian that was told in Chinese, and while I did translate it, the format is still a little bit different than Western comedy sets. So if we are not running time by a lot, then I'll take a look into it, but if not, we'll stop before it. Okay, so let's go to the front. So this one came from a set recently that came out, I think, 3 weeks ago. Austin Young did the set on Coldtowne. So let's take a look. So I've been living in Texas now for a while. I love living in Texas. My dad's a big fan that I live here, and he really wants me to get a gun, right? So, like, this is essentially the setup part, right? It's premise, setup, right? Or actually, instead of doing it like this, it's going to be impractical. So let's do this. C, we'll do this, Command Shift V. There we go. This way we'll just start labeling it rather than actually having to type it out in section by section. That's going to be slow. And in that case, I probably don't even need the left side anymore. So now I can zoom in. There we go. So this is premise, setup, right? I've been living in Texas for a while now. I love living in Texas. My dad's a big fan that I live here and he really wants me to get a gun. Cool. Wants him to get a gun. And here's the thing, I never owned a gun and it's not like for political reasons. So actually, this is the premise, this is the setup, and here would be the punchline, right? And the punchline in here, it says, it's just, I don't like to keep a gun in the house for the same reason I like to keep ice cream there. I don't like to, for the same reason I like to keep, for the same, okay, I don't like to keep a gun for the same reason I think it's missing, I don't like to keep ice cream there. You know, I like to keep temptations. He did the tongue click away, alright? Because sometimes I get sad and have no control, so I don't need that in my life. So this part actually is similar to something Chappelle would do. And the format for Chappelle, if I remember correctly, because for the one that Chappelle did about coming to an empty home, and I think he came back to an empty home, and then he was like, he decided to go through his son's stuff, and then he started reflecting, and then yeah, okay. So it was okay. So if I remember correctly, for Chappelle, I don't know the exact joke, but it went something like this: went home, well, went home, home empty. He feels sad. So that's premise into set. Feels sad. Goes to son's room. Snooping, pretty much. Digging through his stuff. Then setup. A setup in this situation would be found son's poetry, lament, or in simple English, feels sad about missing out on son's growth. Which presumably, because Dave Chappelle have to do a lot of shows on the road, right? On son's growth. Son's growing up process. That's probably better. So found son's poetry, lament about missing out son's and then punchline in this situation is that found son's rolling paper. I think it was because he's feeling sad. So went home empty, he feels sad, goes to son's room. Well, he feels unappreciated. Goes to son's room, home empty, no wife, no son. Goes to son's room, snooping through his found son's word limit about missing out on son's growing up process, found son's rolling papers. Aha, that is where the poetry came from, right? And then he did a self-reflection. And I think the self-reflection, if I don't remember wrong, it's So that's why I said the Found Son's poetry missing out on lament about missing out on moments with family. Self-reflection would be lament about son's growing up process, but then he tags it with another punchline, which is self-reflection into a punchline, which is, but I am still going to smoke his weed or marijuana anyways, right? So it goes from premise into setup into punchline into self-reflection into another punchline. So let's go back to Austin Young's. So you have premise. I've been living in Texas now. Let me make sure I didn't mess up the camera too much. Okay, let's continue. How many minutes are we in? We're 16 minutes in. Good. Okay, so I've been living in Texas now for a while. I love living in Texas. I'm a big fan. Yep, I live in Texas. Dad's a big fan. Premise. Setup. Here's the thing. I never owned a gun, and it's not like for political or moral reasons. Setup. Cool. Punchline. Just I don't like to keep a gun in the house for some reason. I don't like to keep ice cream there, which is you could say it's a minor setup, right? Into a punchline. I like to keep temptations away, and temptation. Well, yeah. Self-harm, I guess, is the because sometimes I get sad and have no self-control. I don't need that in my life, right? And this one would be something like reflection, similar to what Chappelle would do. Reflection. And then from here, but my dad's like really adamant about it. He's like, Austin, you're a Texan now. You got to get yourself a gun. Like, what are you going to do for home defense? How are you going to protect yourself? Somebody breaks in if somebody breaks in, right? No. I don't think it's perfect word for word, but I get the idea. So, set up. I say, listen, Dad, I'm 6'4" and over 300 pounds, and I sleep naked, alright? That's scarier than any man with a gun could ever be, alright? So this is punch. So that's his punchline, saying that he doesn't need defense, he's scary. I got the body of Shrek and the face of a toddler. Can you imagine seeing this act out? And it is essentially a tag, right? Act out into a tag, just running out into a darkness. More act out, more tag. It's fucking terrifying, dude. Which is tag. Very coherent, and it was a good set. So premise, setup, punchline into reflection, into setup, punchline, act out, tag, and tag. Okay. Okay, that's good. So this reflection part might come in useful when I read my own jokes. Anyway, moving on to the next person. This one is from Arimati. Or Arimati? Oh man, I'm really bad with names. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, Ari. Okay, let's see. I went to the cafe yesterday, sitting there, and then I overheard a couple having an argument. This is premise. Having an argument. You could argue it's part of the setup, but let's see. You know when you hear the sweet nectar of life? You know you're like pause your own music and they're going at it. This is almost like so premise I went to a cafe sitting there and I overheard something, it's dragged out. You know when you hear the sweet nectar of life? Well, in this case, it's actually setup. So premise, a good setup essentially acts as premise. So premise plus setup. You know when you hear that sweet nectar of life, that's punchline, right? Nobody wants to hear that. But this one, you know you're like pause your own music and they're going at it. Now this part is essentially a tag, but it also acts as setup for his next part. So it's pulling double action, like it's pulling two at the same time. That's good. Okay, and then I look who the couple. I look who the couple is. It's two gay guys going at it. Shit was crazy. They like both made sense. Punchline. Pretty good. Everybody stayed on one topic. Nobody was bringing up old shit. Just two logical, superior brains trying to find the solution. This is tags galore into punchline, right? So tag, 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 tag. The biggest thing I can learn from this one is a tight setup where the premise and setup is done together. But also, when the tag, you know, you pause your own music and they're going at it to essentially emphasize how, you know, how bad the argument is or how loud it is. But it also acts as a double action for the setup. So the thing we can learn from this is the tag and setup. Just really tight and really clean. So that's good. Okay, next one. Steve Byrne. I met him at the mothership once when he did a show. Really nice person and funny. And one of the best things I like about him is he's able to do clean comedy. Very, very, very reminiscent of someone like, I don't know, pretty much stuff you would see on, I don't know, Saturday Night Live or The Daily Show and things like that. So let's take a look. Steve Byrne. I love McDonald's, and McDonald's at my age is the closest I'll come to cheating on my wife. Okay. Premise plus setup, right? It's the same three emotions, desire, pleasure, guilt, all within 12 seconds. Still part of the setup. But this isn't exactly a technical term, but I would say the thing that I feel right now that's really important is intrigue. Because it draws people in. Now you could say that it's just a really good setup, but same three emotions, desire, pleasure, and guilt, all within 12 minutes. So he's essentially drawing a line between McDonald's and cheating on wife and invite you to pay attention with the three descriptions, right? So I'll be driving, minding my own business, right? I see those arches. So story continues, part of the setup. Oh shit, oof, you look good. You stare up and down while pretending to be driving. So that is an act out, for sure. Drawing a line between cheating and... I mean, he's essentially drawing the imagery between cheating and McDonald's, but instead of looking at the woman, he's looking at the arches, right? Drawing a line between cheating and McD's, right? I want you so bad, I want you inside me. So you could say this is a mini punchline. You could say that's a mini punchline. I want you so bad, I want you inside of me. This is for sure a tag. And then he did a heavy breathing to emphasize the struggle, which is essentially a tag. Well, not a tag, act out. Although sometimes good act outs essentially acts as its own tag slash punchline, right? I'm being good. I'm being good. Go home to your family. Go home to your family now. Don't ruin this. Do not. So this is essentially a reflection that we saw from earlier, but it's also a setup for the next part. Turns head. Yep. Act out. You deserve it. You deserve this. You work hard. You should treat yourself. You're a big boy. Big boy. Treat themselves. This pretty much shows tension. It's kind of like a punchline, but builds tension. Builds tension. Saying it reminds me of the sort of like the devil on your shoulder. I don't know which one goes on which shoulder, but essentially devil on your shoulder. Right? They're honking. It's green. To hell with this. This is the right call. You're gonna feel so much better. This is the more setup, but this is more like although sometimes it doesn't even feel like a setup. It almost feels like narration, right? So setup, this would be the angel on your shoulder. Into absolutely not. I'm going in. Tell you what though, it captures that not fickleness, but how we go back and forth on decisions as human beings really well. Go in, I pop open that door, the waft of grease hits you, welcome home. Oh yeah, the way he said welcome home sounds like that was good. Welcome home actually also serves as a tension release from the bickering of the consciousness earlier. True. So waft hits you, this is more description. Can you call it a setup? Maybe. Some of these are so far beyond just setup and punchline that it's very hard to analyze from my point of view as someone who's like still studying it as a beginner, right? Peppery burger, salty fries, sugary soft drink, give me a sundae, douse it in peanuts, and give me an apple pie. He's sounding like a fat ass at this point, but let's just say, I don't know. It's almost like a punch. It's like an act out with description, which would be gluttony in action, pretty much. Oh fuck, I'm loving it. Yeah, more act out. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. More act out. 12 minutes later, I'm in my car by myself, pinching my side fat. You fat fuck, you fat piece of shit. Which would be the punchline. So, this one is funny, but not in the traditional sense of setup and punch for sure. This one is much harder to analyze. I think I'm going to circle back on this one because this one, it's funny, but it's not apparent why it's funny. Or at least from if you're analyzing it based on structure. So I'll have to go back to this one and take a look. Okay, this one is one of my favorite comedians, Shane Gillis. So here we go. So you know this, the war in the Middle East is just out. on the internet or just on the internet. So this is setup or premise plus setup. The whole effing thing. Every dude's out there on both sides was wearing GoPros the entire time. Still part of the setup. You can watch it. We watched like 3 hours one, and after the first hour, I found myself starting to cheer. That's his first punchline. Because starting to cheer, that's essentially drawing a comparison between watching war with watching some sports team, right? Not cheer, but like relate. I could relate more to the monkey bar guys, right? So this is tag into it's a tag into a setup, cheering for the monkey bar guys, right? No, I mean they were a little more my speed. They were proud of the monkey bars. Remember that video? You've seen them using the monkey bars. So more setup. They were They filmed themselves using the monkey bars and sent that tape out to the world like, not bad, different accent, like what the hell? And send that tape out to the world like, not bad. So this would be like almost like mini punchline, drawing similarity between terrorists? I don't know. Monkey bar guys with people trying to get their mixtapes out or get their first albums or their homemade albums out, homemade tapes out. Sure, why not, right? You ever wonder how you would do out, like what the hell? Okay. You ever wonder how you would do out there? Just watch those guys. Those are just normal fucking dudes. So, more setup. Second shots are fired at. There's no game plan there. There much goes, oh shit! Act out. Punchline. Very relatable. Guns jamming, trying to fire a rocket and go straight fucking backwards. That's a tag. Building on top of the things going wrong. They look like me trying to fire a gun. Their feet move when they shoot. So he was moving his foot sideways. So this is an act out into another tag. So that's good. Very relatable. So more setup. Or story continues. They're also never won. They got fucked up every single time. Bad. More setup. They would blow up like one truck every 5 months and they'd just be they're just as surprised as everybody. Shit finally worked out. You could hear it in their voice. Something will blow up. They'd be like, oh, hello. What? Yeah, whatever. And so they would blow up like one truck every 5 months. So, punchline. Oh, and that's an act out. I was like, yeah, dude, that's a human reaction. That's relatable. That's what I would do if I saw a fucking explosion. I go, ooh. The two O's were very similar. So that this would be a tag. That's human. That's human. You ever watch us kill people? I can't relate to that at all. So this is more setup. And in a way, this is actually reflection, similar to what Chappelle did. So some Black Hawk helicopter with night vision mows down like 40 people. Pilot goes on. He just goes clear. So that's the clear is definitely, I think it's still part of the setup. So this would be like a description. And declare is act out, but also acts as a punchline. A very dark punchline, but a punchline nonetheless. Just flies away like, yo, that's Psycho. The guy didn't even give a fuck about them, which is a tag. Hello. So, unfortunately, the audio broke about 35 minutes in, so we're back at Shingella's joke. So I was going about, yep, it's a tag. At least Isis is down there having fun dancing afterwards, right? And that's a tag. And I believe what ended up happening was I realized that Shingella's set, what I really liked about it is that he's able to do setup, reflection, and tag at the same time. And that is really good to me because I need to figure out how to do it so that it's more natural to do the setup and the tags. Well, no, to do the setup so that the punchline doesn't feel so sudden. It almost feels like part of a normal conversation, right? Which is what I'm trying to work on. And having setups that, well, having punchlines and tags that also continues the story, that takes work because it's more than just setup and punch. There's a certain storytelling aspect to this that they don't really teach you, that you sort of have to just pay attention and find out and learn. So anyway, and afterwards I took a look at jokes in the style of Mitch Hedberg, which is pretty simple, setup and punch, which is the word groundbreaking is great for businesses, but really mean for fat people. Simple, setup and punch. I have quit my gambling addiction, but now I'm addicted to buying plane tickets for flights, hoping they get overbooked. Setup. You could either win a lot of flight credit, still part of the setup and misdirection, or actually have to go to Tampa, which you would think that it would count as a prize, but the misdirection is actually a burn on Tampa. And I also believe that I think I went to Tampa once to perform at their Funny Bone. They were really good, nice club. And upstairs they had a really nice ramen spot. So definitely go check it out if you ever have the chance. Okay, next one. No matter how old you get, if you get abducted, it's still called kidnapping. You're always young at heart and in the eyes of the law. Set up, punch. Okay, and then this part isn't exactly, This part isn't exactly a joke per se, but it's more about that story thing that I mentioned just now about how to tell a comedy set like a story, right? Because once you go long form, there's storytelling elements to it. So it goes like this. So instead of saying this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. People fall asleep if you just keep on doing this happens, then this happens, right? So instead, do the story like this happens, therefore this happens, but then this happens, therefore this happens, right? And the example I gave for this one, which reminded me of it, was actually Austin Young's set from the beginning, which goes like this, right? So this happens is he's been living in Texas for a while, but then his dad is a big fan, so his dad wants him to get a gun. Live in Texas, dad wants him to get a gun, but he has tendencies, right? So he tells him that he doesn't want it, right? But then dad is still adamant about it. So he has to describe to his father how scary he is in the middle of the night, right? So we got that. Okay. Can I make it more visible? One thing I noticed is it might be harder for people to see when I was zoomed in. This is probably better. Cool. Cool. A chance at redemption, right? Okay. So yeah. So story flow. Next, Zhang Sheriff Black Women Compliment, right? And actually, how far are we from the back? We still have quite a bit. Wow, 30 minutes went by fast. Jesus. Okay. Where are we? Black women compliment. The best part about living in Atlanta is that the probability of getting a compliment from a black lady is very high. Setup, and also sets up the intrigue because why particularly a black lady's compliment, right? So it draws people in. And I know this is racist, but a compliment from a black lady just means more. And now that on the second go around, this actually is a punchline. Because people wouldn't expect it to just mean more, right? So that's a punchline. I don't know what, but if a white lady compliments me, I'm like, oh, good for her. She's having a good day. So this is sort of like a tag, but it's definitely part of the setup. So pulling double duty for sure. And then if a black lady compliments me in my soul, I'm like, yo, I earned that shit, alright? That's a punchline. I will cancel therapy. I'll be like, hey, Dr. Cohen, this is over because Gloria told me my fit is fresh as hell. Tag. Black women don't even try when they compliment you. They will just pick one thing about you and they'll turn it into a compliment. Part of the setup. They'll come up to me and like, okay, glasses, I see you, glasses. So that's part of an act out. Into the punchline. I'm just smiling like a dumbass, like, yeah, you know me. You know I wear glasses. You know I can't see. Good punchline, and it's an act out. Next, Ricky Gervais. No one's born racist. The one that that isn't ambiguous, where it is nature or nurture, is racism, right? No one's born racist. You gotta learn that shit. And okay, I don't want to divide the room. That's set up. I'm not a fan of racism. That's a punchline. Didn't see it earlier. I'm not a fan of racism. No, hear me out. I don't care whether you are black, white, brown, European, African. Alright, you're all going, yeah, that's alright, Rick, black, white, brown, European, African. What about the fucking Eskimos? Racist, right? That's a punchline. So, and in a way, this is actually a tag to the earlier one, to the punchline that I didn't see earlier. Okay, they're fucking weird with, they're not weird, they're just different. They're not weird, they're just different. That's tag, but also a setup. Well, actually. They live in the snow, yeah, that's their little house. The snow, so, right. They wear dead sea lions for their clothes. Yes, that's their clothes. The dead sea lion, right. That's more tags, actually. But here's the thing about racism, right? Setup. If you drag one out of his little hole in the snow and peel him out of his sea lion outfit, right? And he's standing there naked, you take a closer look, he's basically a cold Chinaman. What I really like about this one is he starts putting the different layers when he was tagging it, right? He says, they're weird, they live in snow, they wear dead sea lions, right? And then you start peeling it, right? You pull him out of his little hole in the snow, you peel him out of the sea lion. It's almost like building an onion and then just to peel it. And then you go back to the area being cold and back to racism. He's basically a cold Chinaman. Very good. Okay, next one. Arimati. You ever look at a homeless person and think to yourself, must be nice, you know, just to be like, fuck it, good setup. Because you're like a working class asshole like us, life keeps fucking me up the ass. Literally, right? Every year I got to make more room in my asshole for the government to fit another one in there. Inflation, rent, price of gas, what's happening in Gaza. So, tag to his punchline from earlier about having things pushed up the ass, right? And then now he does a setup. And then you look at the homeless dudes just chilling with the boys. Setup, part of the reflection. You see some pretty lady go by, you already know you're not gonna fuck her, right? And into the punchline, might as well pull your dick out, because that's what normal people do, right? Into she runs, you laugh, get 5 high fives from the boys, tag. What's gonna happen? You're gonna call the police? What are you gonna do now? Take me in and give me a bed? Harry Matty's act outs are really good. Reminds me of Robin Williams. So, yeah, that's the structure of this one. Closer to my striking distance in terms of trying to move to the next level up of doing comedy. More achievable, I guess. Okay, next one. Shane Gillis is if conservatives made Scooby-Doo. So every movie just remade is more progressive. Setup. I just think it'd be funny if like the right started remaking. People got a laugh there. You know what I mean? If they just start like conservatives, like there's a new Scooby-Doo coming out. That's part of the setup. And now if Republicans / conservatives made Scooby-Doo, right? It'll be funny like the right made it. Just like Scooby and the gang going around ripping the wigs off transgender people. Punchline. Act out. It's like, that's not a woman. Just some guy. I would have got away with it. And then we're like, we solved the case of the Starbucks ghoul, right? And I believe that part that's really interesting at this part, to me anyway, is that Scooby and the gang going around ripping the wigs off transgender people. When I write jokes, that would have been the premise that I would have looked at. So, that would have been the premise that I would have written down and tried to write a joke about, right? But that premise actually is a punchline in this particular joke. So what this means is that I may have to go back at my notes and look at the different premises or funny situations that I thought of and use them as punchlines and set up a joke around it. I don't think all of it can be done like that, but I'm sure there are some jokes that can be written because of this new approach. So, actually, and I started writing down things that I need to do at the end of next year. So I should write this down. See if it is possible to use premises as punchline and use funny premises as punchline and write a joke around it, right? So we have that. Shane Gillis, Middle East, we did that earlier. South Park, yep. Homeless people, Shane Gillis. Okay, next one. Ricky Gervais, gender pronouns. Ugh, women. Not all women. Ugh, I mean the old-fashioned ones. You know, the old-fashioned ones, you know? The ones with wombs, right? That's a punchline. Those fucking dinosaurs. More tags. No, I love the new women, they're great. You know the new ones we've been seeing, the ones with beards and cocks. Punchline. They're as good as gold. I love them. It's a dig in the form of sarcasm. But then it goes to another setup. No, it's the old-fashioned women. They go like, "Oh, they want to use our toilet. Why shouldn't they use your toilet? It's for ladies. They are ladies. Look at their pronouns. What about this person? That isn't a lady. Well, his penis. Her penis, you fucking bigot. What if he rapes me? What if she rapes you, you fucking turf whore?" So, this one, what I really like is the setup and punchline. It feels like a conversation, and it flows really well as a story. Something I need to incorporate into mine. So conversational, it's almost like two people having a conversation. Actually, I need to write it down. So conversational, see if it is possible to do a converse. Okay. Cold Chinaman, great. Okay, next one. Louis C.K. Monopoly. Now this one, before I dig into it too much, this one, it's not obvious and it's beyond my current understanding, but I'm still going to go through it, but we're going to go past it. I think later on, when I'm a better comedian, where I understand things more, I'll go back to a set like Louis C.K.'s, but right now it's beyond me, right? So the premise is I play Monopoly with my kids. That's really fun. My 9-year-old, she can totally do Monopoly. The 6-year-old totally gets how the game works, but she's not emotionally developed enough to handle her inevitable loss in every game of Monopoly. Well, mini punchline, but story continues. Because a Monopoly loss is dark, it's heavy, it's not like when you lose at Candyland. Oh, you got stuck in the fudgy thing. Oh, well, you're in the gummy twirlios. You didn't get to win. Right? It doesn't feel like a punchline. It feels more like an act out as part of the setup. But when she loses at Monopoly, I got to look at her little face and go, okay, so here's what's gonna happen, okay? All your property, everything you love, all your railroads and houses, and all your money, that's mine now. Gotta give it to me. Give it to me. That's right. And no, you can't play anymore because you see, even though you're giving me all that, it doesn't even begin to touch how much you owe me. Doesn't even touch it, baby. So all that is part of the punchline and the act out of the dark Monopoly loss, right? You're going down hard. It's really bad. All you've been working for all day, I'm gonna take it now and I'm gonna use it to destroy your sister. Which is another punchline into, I'm gonna ruin her. It's just mayhem on this board for her now, right? Tag to the punchline. And like I said before, this is beyond my current understanding. And I'll have to go back to this and see how it just... The story elements is definitely there. The comedy element is more subtle in this one, so I'll have to go back. And now we're down to our last two jokes, I think, because the Chinese one is way too long to... And besides, there's also cultural barrier at the end, so no. We'll just finish up on this too. Kitty Boyle. So this one is, nobody loves America more than an immigrant. We are the true patriots. Part of the setup. I gave up affordable health care to live in this pyramid scheme of a country. Punchline. And I'm still here. Also, America has gotten a bit worse since I moved here. So every time I go home, I have to defend my decision to stay in this country. So that's also part of the setup. Like I'm in an internationally domestic abusive relationship. Punchline. I'm like, you don't know him like I know him. I'll never leave. That's tag in the form of an act out. Good. And this is something I will look at to go beyond my one-liners, right? How to tell a joke in a way where it feels good and have a natural flow. So this is what I'm looking at. Okay, next one. Mark Smalls did this one. It's hard dating a pretty girl. Every time I walk into a room, my girlfriend is hot, bro. She is way too pretty for me. And I get the looks that people give me, like they look at me and I see what they're thinking. Everyone always think it's either one of two things. Setup, a little bit long, but it's getting there. Either A, I got a big cock, which he smirked with a knowing smile, or B, I got a lot of money, punchline, right? Yeah, no one ever thinks it's a real thing, but it could be, which is continuation of the story and setup for the next bit. Maybe it was her traumatic upbringing, punchline. You know what I'm saying? Into maybe her dad was an asshole, but we capitalized on that shit. You know what I'm saying? Yep. More tags to her traumatic upbringing. Next, my girl's dad hates me. Now that's the thing. You capitalize on that thing, and her dad hates you. It feels like a tag, but it also pulls double duty as a setup for the next joke. So that's something that I also want to be able to do in the future. One time he sat me down, he's like, "You're not good enough to date my daughter. Setup." And I was like, "I know, bitch, it's your fault." Punchline. So yeah. Very clean. This double action thing I need to get better at. How do you do a tag, setup, and continuation? Well, setup, that's part of continuation of the story, but it feels natural, right? Which essentially brought me back to the things that I want to work on for 2026, which is I want to do setups that feel like continuation of the story, that sometimes also feel like a tag, and then I also want to work on incorporate reflections that ideally also pulls double action. So it's more of step one, right? 3, pay attention to story flow. So South Park's this happens, therefore this happens, but this happens, therefore this happens. South Park's one I want to learn, but there are definitely more story flow types than just South Park's, right? But the storytelling part is very important. I'm starting to see that. And then next part, act outs. Because not knowing how to do act outs is almost like not purposely not learning some guitar technique or piano technique that I probably should know. It's not that I have to use it, but I'm so much less of an artist without it. So I need it. I need to at least know how, right? And the next one is possible to use funny premise as a punchline and write a joke around it. So that's the one that Shane Gillis did, right? Scooby-Doo and the gang pulling off wigs of transgender people. That would be something like I would call a funny premise, but he did the joke around it. So there's something to be said about writing a joke that way. And the next one, seeing if it is possible to do a conversational act as part of the set joke. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to do something funny, but it's like 2:30 a.m. in the morning. My brain isn't working. But yeah, by pitching my nose, I get to sound nasally, and now I get to act like a dumbass. But it's whatever because I'm really tired, and my self-control is not really working out. So now I just sound like I don't know, nasally. Anyway, Happy New Year, everyone. And these are going to be the things that I will be working on as a comedian moving into 2026. And I hope I can finally do something that's beyond a one-liner that's so good that people would love. So, yeah, I'll see you guys. Well, it's going to be, yeah, it's not going to be next week anymore. I'll see you guys next year. And Happy New Year, okay? Be safe and have fun. Good night.